career goes so fast, and it seems like yesterday that we're all 18 and running on for our first game, but it's amazing how quick 10, 12 years, if you're lucky, goes. And so make the most of your footy, and if you can be involved with a successful side, I could imagine that it'd be fantastic. And certainly halves and Dakes, you know what it's like at the highest level, and something that a lot of us look forward to.
Alistair Lynch will certainly be looking forward to it, speaking to us on Footy Focus just a few weeks ago. And as I mentioned, he'll be playing in his 249th game in the grand final on the weekend. Hope you're enjoying our special preview of the 2001 AFL Grand Final, wherever you're watching live around Australia on C7 Sport. And we've still got 3 hours to go and plenty of special guests to join us. Mark Harvey, of course, will be here as usual a little bit later on to tell us a few more lies about selection, no doubt. And Dermot Brereton will also be joining us a little bit later on. Well, our next guest is a man who is no stranger to this very set. He was here for Footy Feedback. He's on the couch on Talking Footy. He's all over the place. But importantly, he's a premiership coach and a former coach of Brisbane. Rob Walsh. Rob, good to see you.
Thanks, Pete. It's terrific to be here, and I must say I am looking forward to the grand final. I guess because Brisbane's there, and you know, I go back a few years when, well, it was over 10 years ago that I went up there. They were Brisbane Bears, of course. And Essendon, over the last 3 years, have been such a fantastic team. And I reckon it'll be a terrific grand final. I think Brisbane will win because I just reckon they've got things going their way at the moment, and Essendon's hit a few hurdles. Is the heat going to be a factor? We spoke about the fact that it's probably going to be 27 degrees. I think the hottest grand final day you were involved in when it was 30.7 in 1987. So will the heat suit Brisbane, do you think? I think it will. One, they're used to it, and two, Essendon's got a couple of injury concerns. And I think that no doubt that whoever plays on Hurd and Mercury will run them up and down the ground and just try to exploit those injuries. So it's just another little factor that I think goes Brisbane's way. You know, they've won 15 games on the trot. They haven't had any injury worries. Confidence is high. Been no report worries like, you know, Essendon had with Matthew Lloyd. Yeah. And, you know, the Michael Long thing, I really think that would have drained a lot of emotion out of the Essendon Footy Club over the last couple of days. And I think when you look back, you tend to say, well, when things fall into place. Now, in the past, it hasn't for Brisbane because they've had injuries at this time of the year. Yeah. But Voss is up and running. They've got 4 All-Australian midfielders in good form. Lepic has come back into the team at centre-half back and fitted in well. They've got young Brown, who's come of age at centre-half forward. Lynch is back. Things have just worked well for them. Just a couple of brief points before we have a look at the other teams in the 8. Ackermanis from Monday night. Positive or negative for Brisbane? I think a positive. I believe he's handled it really well. They've said 24 hours after he won the Brownlow medal, do all the interviews that you need to do, and then that's it. So they've closed up shop. But I just heard Michael Voss comment over the last day or so, and he said that Acker's been terrific the way that he's handled it. He's a unique character, Jason Ackermanis. You know, I remember him as a 15-year-old, and it won't throw him. He'll say, gee, I want a Brownlow medal, that's all right. But, you know, I want to play in a grand final, I want to be a premiership player. So he'd be looking ahead now. And just briefly, the other thing, when you were paying players out of your own bank account in the deep, dark days of Brisbane, when it looked as though the club was going to go under, can you believe that a few short years later that they're playing for the ultimate prize? I've got to say there were many a day, many a night when we played in Melbourne, were beaten by 10, 15 goals. Those first 3 years we only won 3 games, 4 games, 4.5 games. And you'd fly back to Brisbane after a belting in Melbourne and it'd be pretty demoralising. And that's where blokes like Roger Merritt, Scott McIver, Michael McLean, I'll never forget them because they were the 3 or 4 senior players who just kept their chin up all the time. Yeah. And bit by bit, you know, we put youngsters into the side and very young teams that were played in 93, 94, 95, you know, your Lappins and Vosses and Ackermanis and Ashcroft and White. The upside of it was that those young fellows got their 50 games up by the time they were just out of their teens. So they became pretty experienced at young ages. But when I first went there 10 years ago at Carrara, the membership was 1,800. Amazing, isn't it? Now, and the home crowds, we would get crowds at Carrara of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people. Most of those were the opposition supporters up on the weekend package on the Gold Coast. And to think that it's gone from that in 91, 92, and everybody will say moving to the Gabba was the most important thing, and it was, because it put the Brisbane team in Brisbane where it should be. and you had much better sponsorship with businesses in Brisbane. And also a policy was set that only young players would be drafted and recruited. And before that, I think the club had fallen for the trap of getting too many 28, 30-year-olds. And, well, it just shows, you know, with hard work and some good management and good senior players, and I talk about Voss now as a senior player and Ashcroft, they've just brought the rest of them through. So it can happen in a short time. But I must say, plenty of times I flew back thinking this is a lost cause.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank goodness it's not, and they'll be playing for the big prize on Saturday. As I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the teams who finished in the 8, but not playing off for the grand final. The first of them, Hawthorn, who were so close to a grand final berth last week, and this is what Peter Schwab had to say about the Hawks season.
Yeah, it's been good for us. It's like everything. You got to either find some young players every year, or some players have got to step up and play better than they have before. And we've been fortunate this year that that's happened. We've been able to find some good young players, and some players have played the best footy of their careers. That's why we've improved. We were aiming for a top 4 position, but when you get this far, you never know how long you're going to. You don't know if you'll get here again. So when you get here, you like to think you can go all the way. You know, we're disappointed, and it's going to take us 12 months is a long time to get back to this position again.
It is a long time, but I think they'll probably be pretty satisfied with a top 4 finish. I'm happy to say that the chief sports columnist from the Australian, Patrick Smith, has also joined us at the table. Patrick, good to see you.
Hey, Peter.
Where's your note?
Yes, I was slightly late, but the traffic was bad, but I'm here.
It's not much of a week, really, is it? You know, there's nothing on this week, is there?
I was just saying to Robert, it's a really mad week, and you just sort of end up chasing your tail, don't you? So,
Yeah.
no.
Do you think Schwabby will be pretty happy with a top 4 finish, all things considered?
Gee, I think he'd have to be really happy.
Yeah.
The thing I liked about Hawthorn was, in terms of they got into a preliminary final, and I likened them to a 2-year-old colt that's gone out into a big race for the first time, and it's come back and it's all bug-eyed, and it just learned so much from that, and that's what I think will happen with Hawthorn. I think they got there probably, well, quicker than we probably thought they would, given that their run into the finals was so poor. And then to get so far into the finals and experience what they did, I think that they would just be so enriched by that experience.
A couple of their kids showed a bit towards the end of the year in Clark and Green.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think particularly what they need is quick legs through the midfield. So we know they've got the tall athletic players, you know, right down the spine. I think Sean Wren will have a pretty good next couple of seasons. You know, just listening to him, I think he's really determined to do well. So I think things fell for them pretty well. They started the season terrifically. They hit a few hurdles, but then they came back towards the end, won those 2 finals. That win against Port Adelaide over there, I think, was really significant.
The Richmond finish was another one that last week they would have been very disappointed, and I was on the plane with them coming back from Brisbane. They were pretty downcast, but in the end, top 4 finish. Good result?
I'm sure they'd be delighted with it. It's been a long time since Brisbane's been part of the finals and successful in finals. You know, only a couple of times in the last 19 years. This fellow, Matthew Richardson, he just shows how good he is. I don't think we've seen the best of him still. He's a slow maturer in a way, and of course this young man there, Brad Ottens.
He could be anything, Rob.
I think Brad Ottens will be one of the 2 or 3 players of the next decade. That's how highly I rate him.
Rob, how long do we have to wait, though, just for Matthew Richardson? I mean, I think we've probably been sitting down and saying this at the end of quite a few seasons.
Yeah.
Has he run out of time, or...?
Getting towards that, I sort of excuse him a little bit because he's had the injuries. Over his career, which has gone for about 8 years, he's probably missed 2 years with injuries. He's tall, he's athletic. I reckon Danny Frawl is teaching him to be a team player. Now, he's not selfish, but just natural instinct is to kick the ball to me, I want it, and not to make space for anyone. I think Ottens has been good for him because it's taken a bit of pressure off him, but I think he's also learnt that, hey, Ottens is a very good team player. Ottens assists more goals for Richmond than anyone else, but I take your point. It would be a tragedy if Matthew Richardson's career ended in 3 or 4 or 5 years and we didn't see the potential that I think all of us believe is there.
Yeah. What about Gasper? Now, what if they lose Gasper? How big a setback?
Well, the talk today is that Fremantle are even closer to maybe getting him. I think Richmond were pretty confident that they would keep him, but it seems to be, even in the last 24 hours, that he may be getting closer to going to the West.
West Australians always like to return home.
Yeah.
And
well, they pinpoint them, don't they, when they go recruiting again?
Yeah,
and West Australian club.
He left Perth as a 17-year-old. He went to Sydney. He had 2 years in Sydney, and then Richmond swooped, and he's been with the Tigers for 6 years now. All-Australian a couple of years, been a terrific player. He's a very quiet, modest young man. I coached him for a couple of years. And it wouldn't surprise me if the lure of going back to Perth got him, because, you know, a strong family. His younger brother plays on the West Coast Eagles list. His wife's from back there, and there must be a feeling that it'd be nice to finish my career, because I reckon he's got another 5 or 6 years.
Sure.
I could go back there and, you know, he could make a big dollar, which he's entitled to, and be a leader and enjoy the perks of living back in Perth.
Let's move on to Port Adelaide, gentlemen, and if Danny Frawley and Peter Schwab were relatively happy, Mark Williams was anything but at season's end.
You know, there'll be a burning sensation in our guts until we get into this position again and make sure we get over the line. It's a tough game, and our players have to play, you know, right to the final siren. And you know, I certainly apologise to all the Port people out there that are hurting, because you know, we'll certainly be hurting for a long time.
And probably so they should be, Patrick, because they were terrific throughout the regular season and then out in straight sets.
Yeah, he's a pretty grim man, Mark Williams. I think that's taking a pretty tough and sour look at the season. I think they started well, collected themselves again. I'm not sure that that's not about where they ought to be. I think that was a pretty good season for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too disappointed either. I think they are really on the up because they're so young.
Yes.
They are such a young team, and they are running, and they, you know, losing Paxman hurt at the crunch time at the end of the season, but Primus was a magnificent captain. Wanganeen played some good football. Shea Cockatoo-Collins, he was gone. He's resurrected his career, so I think a lot of positives for Port.
Well, if Mark Williams wasn't very happy, neither was Carlton coach Wayne Britton.
Total waste of time. We played to try and get into grand finals and win premierships, and we finished 5th. So what we got is, I suppose, some good experience for some of the blokes, but we wasted an opportunity to take another step forward.
Total waste of time, is that too harsh?
I think it's a bit hard, but I think he's also very much aware that, you know, Koutafidis will not play for probably 12 months. There's every chance Steve Silvani will retire, so 2 of his best 3 or 4 players won't be there that next year.
Will Bradley go on?
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
But in fact, I thought his season just ran out of impetus when he got injuries. I mean, when he was Carlton set to do something, to lose Ratton,
Yeah.
That's disastrous, really.
I think Ratton, Mackay, there's a couple of others there. We know that Rice will retire, but probably 5 or 6 of their best 8 players are the wrong side of 30, and that's why I think he's concerned about time. So it might be a period. What do they do with Porter and Allen? Yeah, how long can they go on with the 2? Like, it's worked perfectly for them the last 3 or 4 years, because one's been injured and the other's come in and played okay. But both were available through the finals, and seeing them spend time on and off the ground, it doesn't work.
No, well, and I think we're seeing Porter's name thrown up in the marketplace a fair bit for trade, so I think that they've come to the realisation that 2 aren't perfect, and maybe we can get a very good deal for one of them.
Barry Hall, I read today where Barry Hall says he's Sydney bound.
Yeah, Sydney's the favourite.
I reckon Carlton, I know Carlton were very, very keen to get him.
Absolutely, and Barry Hall's an interesting one to me, because I think that is it a sign of the quality of the players that are on the market, or is Barry Hall overinflated as a player, or opinion? 1.5 million for 3 years.
Well, they're possibly even suggesting maybe 600,000 a year,
Well,
so that's huge money for a player of his calibre, you would think.
I would have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sydney, they scraped into the finals, went out the first week to Hawthorn. Here are the thoughts of coach Rodney Eade.
I thought we certainly recovered very well from that middle patch or early patch of losses, and I thought we headed into the final series with a bit of confidence, and I know we had a couple of injury concerns, but certainly we had enough confidence and momentum up, and certainly to finish the way we did was disappointing.
Patrick, I think the problem with Sydney all year was that they played in fits and starts. They strung wins together, then a slab of losses, then a slab of wins. Consistency just wasn't there.
Yeah, ran into Essendon, didn't they, early on, and Essendon fixed them up when they were on that run. I think they had other problems. I think that they did have a problem with Eade, and there was a problem between their chairman, Richard Collis. I don't think that helps at any stage in a club where there is that friction.
Has that been resolved now?
I think it was resolved as best it can. Yeah.
I think the string of wins resolved it in the end, because they won that string of games towards the end. Had they not won that string of games, I wouldn't have been at all surprised had Rodney Eade headed west.
Well, I think that we sensed during the year that was a ramification of what was happening at the club, that Eade may move on. But as Robert said, the wins would come in, and everyone's fantastic when you win.
Lachlan and Goods are two young fellas who I think are wonderful young players. They carry the forward line, and that's why Barry Hall is needed so desperately. And the other worry is Paul Kelly. Injuries, he just seems to be struck down with injuries. We saw him tear that hamstring again in the last final. So, yeah, I think they need to get 3 or 4 pretty good players into that side.
Paul Williams a big plus for them.
Yeah, he was terrific, wasn't he?
Worked into the season really well for them.
And speaking of teams that made a late charge, Adelaide, well, for so much of the season they looked a forlorn hope of making the top 8. They made the last-minute burst into the 8. Here are the thoughts of Adelaide coach Gary Ayres.
You know, win, lose or draw, we had to get some sort of respect out of the way we had been playing, and we lost that respect against Fremantle and again today, and it's a pretty sad way to finish a year off, and that's something that we've got to now live with for the next 6 months until we get another genuine game to actually say, well, this is how far we've come over the summer. It's just bloody disappointing, it really is.
Yeah, well, they certainly went out very meekly, but there were a lot of people suggesting that they were even a chance for the flag after they sneaked into the 8.
Well, they did get going there around about round 16 up to about round 22, but I'd say this to you, Patrick. I watched the Crows play, and I don't know what their game plan is. It's numbers around the ball, numbers around the ball, and hard at it, but they don't throw, to me, they don't throw any surprises to the opposition. And look, they've got players like McLeod and Goodwin, Rashudo, Bickley, who are hard at it, and you respect the way that they play, but you'd like to see a bit more flair.
Yeah, are you worried that they may just be on the turn? Bickley, Rashudo, just...
Oh, Bickley certainly. Rashudo, I think, carried injuries for a good part of the year. Andrew McLeod, what a wonderful player.
Fantastic
I hope he can win a Brownlow medal before his career's over.
Yeah, he probably was a bit stiff the other night, especially with that North Melbourne game in about round 20 that he didn't get any votes there. Well, there are the teams in the top 8. When we come back, we're going to have a look at the teams outside the 8. And if one of those is your team, maybe we might have some encouraging news as we head into season 2002. As we go to the break, one of the great physical features of our game, some of the bumps of the year.
For Adelaide, who's tried hard. Corns in the middle. Will be the fly. Crashed into by McLeod. Corns is down. I think he's a little groggy after that.
Now the Wards half back shows too much of it to Gunn. Oh, caught that. Well, it's good courage by both players. Withers from goal, kicking for space. Look out, McManus. Oh my goodness.
He's got to play the mark.
Play goes on. We're a thunder. Fletcher kicking down towards half forward. Fletcher with courage. Oh, gee whiz. He got straight up there. McManus hit him hard down.
Moving across centre half forward. Can he get to it? Yes, he can. And Shannon Motlop certainly made him earn it. Quick kick away from Fletcher. Embley, crunch. O'Keefe put his body on the line. So a pretty fierce start to this last
forward line. He found him too, Jared. He heard you. Luke Darcy straight up. No.
I just saw Robbo, one of the biggest Shepherd's biggest hits I've seen in football for a while. To the MCG.
There's your ball magnet again, Jared. Shane.
Look out, ball magnet.
Oh, gee whiz. He's all right. Penny is...
The CUB AFL 2001 Grand Final. And you'll see all the pre-match entertainment, followed by the big game live Saturday from 1 on C7 Sport.
Look at that!
Essendon are out to make it back-to-back titles.
Campaign football!
For Brisbane, their first chance to grab the ultimate glory. All the excitement, all the action. The CUB AFL 2001 Grand Final live on C7 Sport.
Two-Wheel Thunder.
the World Speedway Grand Prix.
Something could happen here.
Catch the 2001 Swedish Grand Prix with the world's best riders.
Oh, he's down. He's down.
500cc power, over 150 k's an hour, no brakes.
They are going for it.
Aussie Jason Krupp won his first Grand Prix in Poland. Who'll take out the 6th round in Stockholm? The Swedish Grand Prix, full replay Sunday on C7 Sport.
I wanted to make some new connections, and I reckon I've made a few thousand this week.
I thought I'd be doing some painting, but I didn't think it'd be this much fun.
Work for the Dole is working in your community. Authorised by the Commonwealth Government, Canberra.
Tomorrow's Superstars on show Sunday. Will the game uncover another Lockett, Barassi or a Lee Matthews? Australian football's young champions. The AFL Under-18s Grand Final. Sunday morning at 10 on C7 Sport.
It's the world game. Football.
And a brilliant strike.
Catch the European Football Show for the latest news, results and highlights from the European competitions. From England, Italy, Spain, even Turkey and Greece. We've got all the action covered.
Unbelievable.
A superb goal.
Drives in the shot. Ew, what a goal that was.
The European Football Show, Wednesday night on C7 Sport.
The rising star of the year, Justin Koschitzky, and you can be lucky sometimes and you can be unlucky sometimes because he won $20,000 worth of free air travel with Ansett, the sponsor. But apparently it is international travel, so he will get to travel around, but what a find he was for the Saints. Let's continue our look through the teams in season 2001. And first of all, the Magpies. Well, probably a lot of people had them right down the bottom of the ladder when they were doing their predictions at the start of the season. In the end, they just missed out on the top 8. Here's what Mick Malthouse had to say at the season end.
Well, there's a number of things that have come out of this year. It is a morale. I think we're the only side. Now, I know it's very difficult for interstate sides. When I say interstate sides, I'm talking about non-Victorian sides to win all their games away. But I don't think Collingwood's had a great record of away travel, and we've played now 4 times this year away and won all our 4. So that's a positive. When you talk about morale, that's a real positive for us because it puts us in an area where travel is no longer the feared content of looking at a draw and saying, well, that one's out because we're going to Adelaide or we're going to Canberra or we're going to the West. So there's a lot of things that have come out that have been very positive, and the negatives, of course, are that we were 11-11 and not 13 or 14 that we would have liked to have been.
So it was a kind of a haphazard year. You had some downs and...
Well, I'd hardly call it haphazard.
Well, you had some downs, put it that way.
Yeah, we're a side that's come off 3 wins 2 years ago and 7 last year, so I'd hardly call it a haphazard year.
So looking to next year, you were enthused by the year?
Well, it's been a positive year in terms of the growth of the club and the pool of players.
Patrick, were they victims of their own overachievement in some ways?
No, I don't think so. I think that they were a young side, and I think young sides tire, and I think that that was certainly what happened with Collingwood. I think there were lots of pluses for Collingwood. Certainly Nick Davis, Ryan Loney, they were pluses. But I think down the back, I think Wakelin and Richardson dropped off. I think they were good early, and I think they dropped off for them. I think they have to look at getting somebody out down the back. It's certainly one of the reasons they were keen on Heath Black to get some run out of defence. And support for Josh Fraser in the ruck. I think that's pretty essential for them.
The Western Bulldogs, Rob. Everyone's talking about the fact that the broom's got to go through the place. They were so close to 2 grand finals just a few years back. Do they have to take a broom to the place?
I think they have to make quite a few changes, yeah, I do. Already Jose Ramiro said that he'll retire. Libba will go on. I think there's place for one Libba, but you can't have a Libba and a Ramiro in the same team. Not today because of the pace. Gian Siracusa, we saw this young fella come into the team. He was good. Robert Murphy is going to be an exceptionally good player.
Gilby, Hahn.
That's right, McMahon. We saw the introduction of some new players over the last 12 months, and I think Terry Wallace realises that it's a changing of the guard. Scotty White went, Luke Darcy stepped right up in the ruck. I do think they need to find a couple of key defenders, fellas who can stand tall at full-back and centre-half back, which leaves Chris Grant to play at centre-half forward.
What about Melbourne, Patrick? The graph continued. It's been up, down, up, down, up, down for a few years now. Do you think that they were rescued somewhat and maybe got a bit of a false sense of security by the way they finished the season?
No, probably not. I mean, I think that it's a hard season to judge because when you have the internal problems they had, I mean, I think they must be terribly draining. Everyone tells us they're draining. So I think that you've got to take that into account. Neil Danaher, well, he ought to be getting used to managing these things now. But I think injuries hurt them. I've got no doubt about that. I don't think that they were able to organise Neitz and Swartz the way they wanted to organise them. And not to get anything out of Powell, I think. And Rigoni, I think, played 10 games, and I think that hurt them in the midfield, which was their strong point.
What's your latest mail? Will Schwartz stay or go?
I'm led to believe he'll stay. One more season.
OK, let's move on to Geelong. And of the disappointing teams in the competition, he was certainly one of them, the way they petered out at the end. Here's Coach Mark Thompson.
Well, I'm glad it's over. It's been one that we never got off to a good start. We lost 5 after 2 wins and really had to fight to stay in the competition, and then hit Melbourne again, and it's all been downhill from there again. So the 5 sides we lost to early in the year, we've lost again to. So makes you wonder whether we've made much improvement from that particular area.
They must be an incredibly frustrating team to follow, I think, Wolsey, because you look at their list and you think, gee, they're going to do all right, but they just don't produce.
They were disappointing this year. They played finals last year and never looked like being a finalist this year. I thought they were pretty undisciplined. They gave away more free kicks than anyone. They had players suspended left, right and centre. And I just think that I think the coach needs to probably get a bit harder with them and be stronger in the way that they play. Their attack on the ball was okay. Their attack on the man was pretty sloppy.
Robert, do they have any stars? I mean, King's a wonderful ruckman, but do they really have any stars?
I don't think they do, Patrick.
No,
I think that Ben Graham is still a level short of being a star player. Ronnie Burns can be very good, but lost a lot of games through suspension. I don't think they've got stars. Young Spriggs, well, Scarlett maybe, but you don't get too enthused. Bizzle at full forward, 1 game in 4 is a good one. I think it's going to be hard work down there, and I think no longer Shell Stadium, but back to Cardinia Park.
Yes, yeah, it looks as though the sponsorship has lapsed after 3 years, so it will be back to Cardinia Park again, just when we got used to calling it Shell Stadium. Well, I'll tell you one fella, gentlemen, who'll probably be watching us tonight because he's got a bit of time on his hands, and that's Dennis Pagan, and he's certainly not used to having time on his hands in September.
Yeah, we're disappointed, very disappointed. Too much has been left to too few. Our senior players have been very, very good. If you look at the core group of senior players, they've been good. Our second tier perhaps haven't grasped the mantle. We've played 10 debut players and probably 4 players from other clubs who have played their first games with the Kangaroos. With 3 blokes off our rookie list come up and play. So one thing that we've provided a lot of opportunity, and we think we've found some good young players, and we think that's going to be positive for the future. And you know that the calibre of the people haven't played much, as Stevens and Abraham and Colbert and Martin, and I suppose you'd say Wayne's season has been really interrupted by injury the majority of the time and a foolish suspension.
How hard personally for you, first final series for a long, long time without being actively involved?
Doing it very hard. It's a strange feeling, I can tell you. We're usually at this time full of beans and looking forward to the next 4 weeks. Our season's come to an abrupt end and it's not very palatable. The thing that we have got for the first time since I've been coach is going to be an opportunity to really plan, to really sit down and formulate some strategies that's going to help us get better. And
Dennis Pagan, a very disappointed Dennis Pagan. Patrick, apparently at the Brownlow the other night, every second person was saying that things are not quite right at Arden Street. Did you hear those rumours floating around?
Oh, definitely. And, well, at the Brownlow, the rumour was rife that he was going to Fremantle, Dennis Pagan. I mean, and I think that Michael Easy made some comments, he's the new chief executive, made some comments on the weekend that were inflammatory. I mean, I would have been disappointed had I been Greg Miller, had I been Dennis Pagan, had I been anybody at that club. I think I would have been disappointed to hear somebody who hadn't really sat down and worked through the problems make these observations from a distance. I don't know how to read the Kangaroos. I don't know whether their older players have turned and can't perform for them. I'm not convinced that the younger players are going, as Dennis said, can come up and be good second-tier players. I don't know, Robert. I just can't get a bead on them.
Does Martin stay and play, and does McKernan go?
I think McKernan wants to go, therefore he has to go. I mean, I think it's as simple as that. If you want to go, then I think you need to go. Martin's a tough one. I think that he looked to me to be a pretty tired footballer at the end of it.
We're talking about an interstate team or a non-Victorian team, Brisbane being in the grand final this year. It was the domain of the West Coast Eagles for so long, but it looks as though they're going to have a bit of pain in front of them.
It does, Peter. Under Mick Malthouse, 10 years of finals. Under Ken Judge, the 2 years. And, of course, they didn't play finals and Ken Judge lost his position as senior coach. Really think that John Worsfold will coach them, Patrick.
That's the male. Definitely
yeah.
John Worsfold's got the job.
In fairness to Ken Judge, I reckon he had a wretched run. He lost so many players with injury. You know, Sirakowski, and there was Braun, and there was Reid, and there was Pryor, all with long-term injuries. Ageing stars in Matera and Djakovic. McIntosh doesn't get out on the park too much nowadays. Wirapunda, I think, has been disappointing as a young player.
He's definitely been a disappointing player.
And I
Dean
think
Kempy had problems.
Yeah, Dean Kemp, marvellous player,
fantastic,
marvellous player. But I just think that John Worsfold will be good for morale and spirit and getting them together. Can't see them playing finals for a couple of years.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. Well, the coach of the West Coast Eagles has already gone, by the way, as we've discussed, Ken Judge, but the biggest footy story of the year, I think, was this one.
Yes,
that day at St Kilda. It was a remarkable day, Patrick.
It was a day I still don't make sense of.
No.
I don't see how you could sack Malcolm Blight. I think I've written a piece in the Australian tomorrow, and I again say that it was a foolish decision. I don't think they recouped much from the season after getting rid of Malcolm.
Why did they sack him, Patrick?
I'm not sure. I still can't answer that. They tell us because he was distracted and he wasn't doing preparation. Well, that's fine, but then who do you replace him with? And they replaced him with Grant Thomas, an inexperienced coach. I would have thought that you had to go with Malcolm Blight to the end. Having said that, I think that you know, they've gone through a process now, and we've been critical of the process that's got Grant Thomas there, but he's there now, and I think that we have to take him as their coach and live with that.
Will Malcolm Blight coach again?
I don't think he could possibly coach again. If he did, it would only be out of spite to say, you did the wrong thing, I am a good coach and you got rid of me, I will prove you wrong and coach again. I don't think that's the reason to coach again.
I've been sacked as a coach, it's devastating. I understand that Malcolm's taken it pretty hard.
Very hard, very hard. I spoke to him this week and I think that he's still reeling from the effects of that decision to sack him.
What about the playing list? We spoke about Barry Hall and the fact that he's definitely going to go somewhere, be it Sydney or somewhere else, maybe Carlton. But apart from him, the young fellas coming up through the ranks, we saw a lot of Kazitsky this year who was good. We saw a bit of Rewalt who gives some good signs. Where do you see their playing list?
Well, those two boys could be captain, vice-captain within 3 years.
Yeah.
They're that good. I think Everett's a query. I think Everett gives all the signs of a player who wants to be somewhere else, but I think he's paid so much money at St Kilda that clubs are loath to pick him up. So you've got one of your best players at possibly disenchanted, but you can't move him anywhere.
They'll get a couple of early draft picks again, so hopefully they get another Kazitsky and Rewalt, every chance that they will. Hamill will be better after a year, and Fraser Gehrig will be better after a year. So not all gloom and doom for the Saints.
Well, when will Harvey get back? I mean,
he'll get back halfway through the year, I would think. Burke will play. I reckon that Grant Thomas he's worked hard to get on side with the senior boys. So I think that Burke
put
will
them in
play.
the box with him for every.
Burke will play. And
what about Lowe?
Well, I reckon it'll be Lowe's call if he wants to play. I reckon I'll let him play.
Well, we spoke about the process. Patrick spoke about it. The process at the end of it, they arrived at the man that was the worst kept secret in footy, Grant Thomas, the coach, and he's going to be optimistic looking towards 2002.
I think you can only point to the character of the players. I mean, underneath everything, they've been caught a lot of things, but they are people, they are human beings, and behind everything, I think they're all very good people, and they've got good character. And when it means enough to them, they just need leadership and direction. And our senior players have helped in that regard. And we set some real targets this week, and they completed those targets. And I think that you know, when you've been down a little bit and you've been kicked around, you're right. You can take two steps. You can either sort of go one way and say enough's enough and do something about it, or you can do it the other way and put your head down and sort of meekly finish the season. So I'm glad they took the former, and they deserve all the credit.
Grant Thomas, who's certainly going to be in the hot seat come season 2002. Who's going to be in the hot seat for Fremantle? Is it going to be Chris Connolly? Is it going to be Mark Harvey? Maybe it's going to be a surprise. Ben Allen was the man who, of course, took over after the sacking of Damien Drum. He's got a reasonable list to play with at the end of the year. His next in line, well, let's hope that he is able to make something out of the list that he's going to have. You should see what's going on behind the camera here at the moment. We'll show you in a minute. But anyway, here's Ben Allen.
I reckon if skill and speed, I think that's pretty broad terms, but I think we get a couple of classy people from around the traps, whether it's from an under-18 competition or whether it's from other clubs, or the waffle, we can improve significantly the list, and it just allows us to be a lot more flexible.
Well, gentlemen, of the two West Australian clubs, you'd have to say prospects are brighter for Fremantle.
Absolutely. He mentioned their skill and speed. I think speed is the reason why Adrian Fletcher's been told we no longer want you, which is a bit sad because he's given a pretty good service.
Well, I think for them to get 2 wins out of the latter half of the season under Ben Allen, I think was fantastic. Really, I mean, because they were rock bottom, and yet they had enough skill and speed and enough young players to be able to extract 2 wins. So I think that was a pretty good result, and I think Chris Connolly will get the job, and I think he'll enjoy himself there.
And I think they should make Peter Bell captain. Forget about having the dual captaincy, McManus and Fletcher. Peter Bell's played the premierships. No, it's a cop-out having 2 blokes as captain. Pick one and give him that authority and that confidence to lead the team. I reckon Peter Bell would be wonderful.
Big improver for 2002. One team.
Big improver. Look, St Kilda will improve on their 2 or 3 wins, no doubt about that. So, you know, they could well get 8, 9, 10 wins, I think.
Patrick?
Well, I'm going to back Chris Connolly in to do something at Fremantle. Yeah.
And who might fall of the ones up the top? Are there any likely to fall?
Carlton could fall. Yep. I think they're in a shaky position. I think Wayne Britton's a fine coach and will get the best out of what's there, but I think they've got a few worries.
Well, given the fact that both of you gentlemen have been involved in football feedback, and Patrick, you are still involved, you know that the budget is quite limited on a Monday night, but we spare no expense here on Footy Focus. In fact, we've got our own caterers. It's only taken us 5 months after Simon Beaumont promised. Tony Delaney and Scotty Mollard.
Hey guys.
Thanks. Now,
I know it took a while, but here they are.
Yeah, thanks.
Are they hot? Of course they are.
Oh, you beauty.
Nothing but the best down
Have you got sauce?
Scotty?
No, I didn't. Yeah, no, Simon was bringing the sauce, but we can't track him. So.
Now, yeah, incidentally, where is Simon? Because he's been the one who's been promising these pies for about 4 or 5 months. He hasn't shown his face.
Well, we can't seem to find him. We don't know where he is. I think he had a hard day in the shop and packed it in and maybe went down the beach for a swim or something like that.
All right. Now, you better give the shop a plug for anyone who lives in Melbourne or the people coming to Melbourne for Grand Final week.
Yep, Jazz Jaffel Pies down at 167 Bay Street in Port Melbourne, so nice and close to town there, and yeah, I think we're the only Jaffel Pie shop in Melbourne. So
the new shop, Tony.
And the new shop also, yeah.
Oh, new shop.
Yeah,
oh, the empire's expanded already.
Now, dear me.
That's right. We opened up a new place in a place called Healy's Lane in the city.
Oh, yeah.
Which is in between King and William Street and runs between Lonsdale Street and Little Lonsdale.
You haven't got a Melrose reference? That'll be the only thing you've missed so far.
No, not as yet. I can get back there.
Right near the courts.
Yeah, well, just so long as the pies are here, that's the main thing. Scotty and Tone, thanks for coming in.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us.
Scotty Mollard and Tony Delaney. And Patrick Smith, thank you.
Pleasure.
For your contribution throughout the year. Are you fronting up on Monday night for the last edition of Feedback?
Oh, I wouldn't miss that one. Yeah, no, I'll be there.
Be on time.
I'll be on time this time too.
And Rob, always good to see you back here. Have a great weekend. I know it's been a long, exhaustive season for your media commitments, but congratulations on the success of Talking Footy.
Thanks,
and enjoy the grand final on the weekend. Robert Walls and Patrick Smith joining us. When we go to the break, we'll be hooking into the pies. But before we go to the break, let's go to the tackles of the year. You're watching the Footy Focus Grand Final Preview 2001.
He's had 82, handball now, make it 83, Pikes run down. Oh, it's turning. You can just feel
Milburn. Pressure on Sanderson. He had someone on the inside. Hamill got a brilliant tackle. Well to each other, Bowden and Timmerdale. Rogers is a goal kicker. Had one bounce too many, surely.
Well done.
Great tackling by Ackermanis.
Williams, good kick. Williams away from Roberts. Going to run him down. Oh, terrific. Wasn't it a good chase? And Paul Williams, he is lost.
Lloyd keeps his eye on it. Well done by Ryan because Lloyd fancied himself there. Oh, run down was terrific. Careful. Coming back to Ramanat.
5.5 minutes left. Lappin run down by Blake. He's caught. Oh, what a great tackle. Locked him up and down the side.
Back to Edwards. In trouble. Great tackle, Archer. Terrific chase by Archer.
He goes to the ground. Got to get the hand pass away to Neat. You got to be